Hey guys, I'm Sean La Rue with Neo Home Loans. I'm having a great day and I hope you are too. Today we're joined with Rich La Rue, who is the broker extraordinaire of HomeSmart for the Phoenix and corporate regions, um, overlooking all of the details, all of the fun situations that come up in real estate for HomeSmart. Welcome, Rich. How you doing today?
I'm good. Happy to be here. This is going to be
Awesome.
fun.
Awesome. It is going to be fun. I know the last week and a half, 2 weeks has been great for you, gearing up and getting the information out there. Um,
Oh, and
we'll,
how.
it's definitely a hot topic, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on today. Um, just a couple quick talking points about that. We'll get into that a little bit later. But wanted to welcome you on. Want to say thanks for joining us, and I think you're a wealth of knowledge with over 40 years of experience in real estate in the Arizona and California markets. Um, but you're also my dad, and so uh, this will be a lot of fun. New
Well,
territory
and,
for
and I
us.
want to tell you, I'm proud to be the broker at HomeSmart. In fact, it's my honor. But I'm even more proud to be your dad.
Oh,
And I've done a lot of podcasts, um, and this is my first time doing a podcast with you. And we've talked about it, I don't know, for several years. So
yeah,
uh, this is a cool day, and we're going to have fun.
it is
You
gonna
know,
be
and
fun.
I hope our listeners, our watchers, have as much fun as we're going to have. But we'll see.
Absolutely. So yeah, we were just talking a little bit off screen. You did a little Salt River float this weekend. I did a Russian River float this weekend. It's all about the work, personal life balance. Um, Always a lot of fun. You like to keep yourself busy with motocross races and barbecue. So what are some of those things that you like doing when you're not talking about real estate?
Oh man, when am I not talking about real estate? Especially here the last few months. But yeah, I used to race motorcycles 2 years professionally. So, anything motorcycle related, I am all about. At least on the watching side now, anything with wheels that goes fast and there's racing, I'm all about it. Of course, this weekend we're right in the middle of the Olympics, and so there's a lot going on there that's of interest. And so, it's just kind of nice to get away from the phones and get away from email for a little while. And so the river float was, that accomplished it, although I ended up with a bit of a sunburn on my legs because, when you're as Casper White as me, sun is not necessarily your friend. So,
I was so
but
proud of
fun times.
myself. You're talking about the phone, keeping the phone away. I mean, we're just, going for that, reaching for that phone all the time. I actually kept my phone in the car. And so I have no photos on my phone of the float, no videos. I'm like, I'm just going to be present, just enjoy this time with my boys. And
Oh, that's awesome.
the photos and videos are getting downloaded off the WhatsApp group, and we'll put something together off of everybody else's footage. But um,
Good times.
great times. I've been enjoying the Olympics. I feel like I followed it a lot more closely in years past. Maybe I'm just super busy. There's sure a lot going on. Um, and yeah, it's interesting kind of where we're ranking, all the gold medals that we're pulling off. I saw I don't know, did you see the one yesterday with the 100 meter um, the 100 meter fastest man?
I missed
Um,
the men's 100 meter. I did watch the women's, which I think was Saturday night.
okay.
Uh, and so I missed the men's.
I don't know. It was super close. I don't know how they measure these things, but from my eye, it looked like somebody's foot was over the line. But if they're going off of your head or your chest, crossing that line, it was definitely a photo finish. And I think they
Wow.
had the exact same time. It was 9.79 seconds, and it was down to like the 100th of a second. So
One thing
super
that I've
close.
noticed this year with the Olympics is it seems like the times are so close, and there's been so many events that have been decided, you know, not by a tenth of a second or even a hundredth of a second, but a thousandth of a second. I mean, it's so close. There's so much competition. And so I sit there and being the, I don't know, philosopher that I am, I'm going, I relate that to life and business and success. And, you know, what's the difference? You know, you've heard me talk for years about 212 degrees and how much difference that 1 degree makes, you know, between 211 and 212 degrees. And Olympic results were used in an original video that I used talking about 212 degrees. And now it's even closer than it was then. And it's just like, you know, wow, people just have to be so on their game because, you know, between first and fourth in one of uh, the men's swimming competitions, it was like, you know, down to less than a hundredth of a second um, uh, between everybody. Excuse me, less than a tenth of a second. And so it's like, how good do you have to be to make the Olympics? You know, it's like,
Yeah.
holy cow, you know, and none of those times, you know, fourth place, you know, is still respectable, you know, with those times. And yet you're off the podium.
You're off the podium.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You are an Olympic competitor as opposed to an Olympic medalist.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, it, it, I, the example that keeps coming back to me is that if you're off as a professional golfer by one stroke, it's the difference between millions of dollars, um, you know, just coming in
Yeah.
second because of one
Yeah.
stroke. So,
Yep.
just absolutely crazy. You got to be the best of the best and keep pushing your hardest. And I think the one
And
guy,
have a little luck fall your way.
yeah, I think he set a personal best, a personal record. And if you're gonna if you're gonna set a personal record, you better do it in the Olympics. It's a pretty good time to
Right.
do it.
That's the
Yeah,
time.
yeah, absolutely. Um, so here we are. What is it? August 5th,
Sixth.
August 6th. I missed
No,
a day
August 5th. You're
yesterday.
right.
It is
What
August
day is
5th.
it?
Okay.
You know, and that is pretty telling of the times right now, because you know, a lot of, and I know you want to talk about this a bit, but you know, with the NAR settlement being the line in the sand is drawn on August 17th, and we're here in Arizona where we went live with everything on August 1st.
Right.
And so it's like, what day is it? Um, and and so it's yeah. I mean, it's crazy times, but
Well, and we've been talking about this a lot and just the confusion of like where we're operating, how things have been in the past and wrapping our minds around like how it's going to be in the future. Um, I think it's really smart to start it a little bit early. Um, Kind of get in the habit of being ahead of it before it really all kicks in. And I mean, you hosted like 14 different podcasts. You've just been in it.
yeah.
You've heard a ton of different scenarios. Um, so give us a quick Reader's Digest, couple points about what's going on, a big overview, and then I'll ask you a few questions.
Well, first of all, I've been following the lawsuit for a couple of years, but since March 15th, when the lawsuit hit, excuse me, when NAR lost the lawsuit, it was like, okay, here we go. And so I've been up to my eyeballs in it since then. And, you know, just really drilling down on what does all this mean? Because here in Arizona, we've got 7,000 plus or minus agents, you know, who are obviously very interested. And there's a lot of fear around this because these are industry changing events that are happening because of the settlement of the lawsuit. And so, really, there's two big things, and that is that compensation can no longer be listed on the MLS or communicated through the MLS, and buyers must sign an agreement, um, prior to seeing any homes. And I mean, that's pretty big because buyers have never had to sign anything. And so there's some concern about how to have this conversation with our buyers going forward. And all that is understandable. Because I've been involved with it so far, I might be a little bit further down the road with my own understanding with this, which is good because I can talk about it and hopefully I don't take the temperature down a little bit, maybe alleviate some fears or concerns about what to expect going forward. But we went live last Thursday on August 1st, and so here we are. And I'm kind of glad that we finally ripped the Band-Aid off
Yeah.
because I was ready.
Yeah. I mean, we just have to keep moving forward, and I think change is inevitable in our industry. There's always another form to sign, another disclosure to protect our buyers, our sellers. Um,
Well,
but
and you
from
went through it in 2008
right,
with all the changes in the mortgage industry. And there was some concern about whether loan officers were going to be elbowed in the throat and pushed out of the business altogether, whether there's going to be, any need for loan officers. And I mean, look where you are today. I mean, it's business is very different than it was, but it's also very much the same. And so it creates an opportunity for all real estate agents and brokers um, to serve their clients better and to just get better at their trade.
right. I think even in the 99 .com bust and the
Mm-hmm.
CFPB hunt and different things, we're always thinking that technology and compliance are always going to be automated and kind of take take some of the freedom away from what we do as professionals. And I would like to argue that there is no better time than now where, AI and compliance are, they might be taking a small percentage of the jobs or even making our jobs a little bit easier. But I think we've seen a huge drop off in renewals of licensees. I think there's certain licensees like realtors that are getting out of the business because they don't want to compete. I think there's a lot of loan officers that have gotten out of the business. Um, and I just see that as opportunity for everybody. The professionals will win. We're going to leverage AI to our advantage. And if you're not using it, um, you know, um, you're using all the tools and everything in order to help where those things can help. But our business is really a people business, and they really can't do it without us.
Yeah, it is a people business, and that I listen to a lot of podcasts, and there's concern that as AI enters the mortgage world, as it enters the real estate world, that agents and LOs will be out of business. But I think it's the agents who embrace AI and the LOs that embrace AI will uh, will leverage that. If you use that as a tool, you're going to capture the business. It's the people who don't uh, leverage it, the people who don't lean into it, who will be pushed out of the business. So it's not going to take it over, but use the tools that you have, and you'll get better at what you do. You can do more faster and better than where you've been in the past.
Absolutely. Now, so as a collective 6 months, you've been in the trenches. You've heard a lot of different scenarios about how people are interpreting this, um, mostly from the real estate agent side.
Yeah.
Um, Give me some of the top three scenarios or top three things, top advice, top points that you would offer to any real estate agent listening to this today.
Well, I think the first one is to take a big, deep breath. Agents are either they have stopped breathing or they're hyperventilating, one or the other, because there's a lot of fear around how to go forward. We have to be able to articulate our value. And I think that as a group, that's one of the things that we have not done well. Now, individually, certain agents are masters at this. And I'm talking specifically on the buyer side of the transaction, where we don't articulate our value well because we haven't had to. There's always been kind of a lazy attitude about that. And especially through COVID, it even made it worse and we got lazier. But now, because we have to have an agreement signed with our buyer prospects prior to showing them property, we have to show the value that we will add to the transaction and their personal experience. So I think this is a great opportunity to do just that. And those agents who can articulate their value will capitalize on this. And those who can do it today are going to be weeks, months ahead of the agents who are just now starting to figure this out, or if they're fighting the change. It's just going to hold you back. No sense fighting it. This is happening, ladies and gentlemen. We might as well embrace it. And we can argue about, well, this is wrong. The whole thing is wrong. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to go there today because this is life. It's happening, and moving forward, the real estate industry will look differently. So that's number one, is to be able to articulate your value and express what you do, what the value that you bring to the transaction to your buyers. I guess another is know how to do an open house and don't panic about it. Also know how to talk to your sellers, because there's going to be a lot of sellers out there who say, well, I'm not going to pay the buyer side commission. Okay, that's fine, not a problem. But understand that the buyers have been paying for everything in the transaction before. They've been paying the seller side compensation. They've been paying the buyer side compensation all along. Why and how? Well, that's because it's the buyer who comes to the table, and whether they're paying cash or they get a mortgage and they've got a down payment, they're the ones who are bringing all of the chips to the table so everything can get paid. Even the home warranty, whatever it is, escrow and title fees, it is all paid by the buyer and always has been. Commissions, compensation has always been negotiable, always will be negotiable. And so we as selling agents, listing agents, we just have to be able to have the conversation with our property owners, our sellers, and be able to articulate that as well. And, no, they don't have to pay buyer side compensation. But chances are those offers coming in are going to include that. I think that we're going to see transactions look very much the same moving forward. Maybe initially not so much. That being the case, we might have fewer transactions for the next 30 days, 60 days, whatever it is. But I think that a year from now, transactions are going to look very much the same. It's just maybe the settlement statement may look a little differently. We'll have numbers in different sides of the column.
Right. No, that's an interesting point, that the buyer brings the chips to the table, and it's like, okay, as a seller, like, I'm not paying for that, blah blah blah. It really depends on what that overall deal kind of looks like, and really just being, crystal clear on where all the dollars are going. And it's like, yeah, at a certain price, you may not offer that, but at the right price, and if it's included in the offer, like, you're still a seller, you want to sell your house. We've got a buyer who wants to buy the house. They're offering you X dollars,
It's all about the net to the seller at the end of
right,
the day.
right,
I've used the example quite often with our agents that, you get the call and you're going on a listing appointment, and the house is worth $1 million. You've done your market analysis and you have 3 good comps at $1 million. The seller has already indicated that they think the house is worth $1 million. Right? And you're going over there going, yeah, this one's in the bag. And then the seller drops the bomb on you that, well, they're not going to pay buyer agent compensation out of that. Well, that those 3 comparable sales that you're using all had similar closing costs whatever it might be, and it included buyer agent compensation. And so the house really isn't worth $1 million if the seller isn't paying buyer agent compensation. It's worth a little bit less, whatever that buyer agent compensation is, and we can use percentages, we can use dollars or whatever, and as an example, if there's no buyer agent compensation in there, maybe it's worth 970 or 975 or something like that, in that range. And so if you're not offering it, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, get realistic on the price, because, the buyer is likely going to need that. And so we're just counseling our sellers to understand that offers coming in will likely include some sort of buyer agent compensation.
Absolutely.
So keep it in mind. Watch for it. It'll be there.
Yeah, one question that kind of comes to mind as you're talking about that is, it'll be interesting to see what happens with appraisers, um, appraisals,
Yeah.
and how they're comping, whatever that compensation was compared to how those comps closed. And I mean,
Yeah.
that information's probably not even going to be disclosed. So, um,
Going to be a lot of phone calls going back and forth.
right.
So agents, when you get a call from an appraiser,
Take
do
it.
us all a good one and take the call. Call them back. Tell them what happened.
Yeah.
We need the collaboration.
So you've probably heard time and time again, like very similar scenarios. You had a lot of different calls. Regarding the buyer side, what have you heard kind of time and time again, a scenario that seems to be a common theme, um, a question that you're answering a lot. What do you think?
Well, it really, because we don't have a lot of history with actual transactions yet, it's all fear-based what ifs.
Yeah,
And so we've heard darn near every what if you can imagine. And so, really it's coming from the place of, well, this is the way we have always done business. And so if the seller is not offering compensation up front, then um, the buyer does have, in fact, the option to not see those properties. All right. And there's been a lot of chatter around this, and I've been very opinionated about this. Is and we in Arizona we have the provisions in place for a buyer to tell us as their agent not to show properties where the compensation is not being offered. And I think that that is a disservice to our buyer clients. We should be showing every property whether compensation is offered or not. It's just one more item to negotiate in the transaction. And I realize, agents are going to go, yeah, but it's that one item that makes all the difference to me. Get over yourself. It's not about you. It's about your buyer client. And so it would be no different than negotiating any other term in the offer. What I mean by that, if your buyer needs a 2-1 buy down because interest rates are high, even though they've trickled down over the last couple of weeks, they're still higher than what they've been over the past few years, right? And if your buyer needs a 2-1 buy down in order to qualify, and if they cannot get a seller to offer that concession through the negotiations in the transaction, then they may not qualify to buy that house. You need to move on and find another one. Same thing with buyer agent compensation. It can be asked for in the offer, and if the seller is unwilling, if you cannot come to terms, well, then the buyer shouldn't be buying that house. And so that property stays on the market. They move on and find a seller who will offer that concession, and they buy that house. And of course, there's all kinds of arguments around that. Well, that was the perfect house that they had to pass on, and this one is not perfect. Well, that's the way it is,
right,
And I guarantee you, 97 days after the seller puts that house on the market, and they get 2 or 3 offers, and they're just right there. No, it's on principle. I don't have to anymore. Okay, you're right. You don't have to.
right,
But do you want to sell your house?
right,
These are the offers that you are getting because this is the market right now. And this is the price range where buyers need that assistance. And so, in order to sell your home, in order to accomplish your goals, whatever that might be, whether you're moving across town or across country, if you're trying to do it on a timeline, it's no different than it has been in the past.
Right.
And that's, I think, what's tripping us up as an industry.
Get out of your head, show
Individual
the
real estate
house.
agents playing the what if, and okay, well, what if they, do I have to work for free then? No, that's not what Article 16.6 says of the Code of Ethics. No, you have a buyer broker agreement. Uh, you deserve to be paid. You will be paid. Just you have to become a better negotiator, and that's the
Yeah.
other skill that we have to do. I had talked about articulating our value. The other thing we need to do as buyers agents and listing agents, for that matter, is to become better negotiators. And I don't care how good we are individually as negotiators, we can all enhance our skills there. And now's the time to do it.
So I think this is actually a really great kind of segue to start talking about, like, we've kind of seen a race to the bottom with commissions and not being able to articulate our value. And I mean, I would just warn agents that, like, you know, continue to negotiate your value, but, like, let's not race to the bottom of the lowest compensation out there. Um, it's a sliding scale, a menu of services that you guys provide, but sellers also get what they pay for. Buyers also get the value that they're going to
Mhm.
be paying for, and it's all about clearly communicating the expectation. Um, I know we've had lots of talks about, it seems like certain agents are taking an approach to race to the bottom. How would you,
Some
how would,
agents are only worth that bottom tier, whatever that number is. But those who can articulate their value and have good negotiating skills can prove their worth in the transaction, and they're going to get paid what they're worth.
yeah,
Also, something to think about as a buyer's agent is you no longer have a listing agent negotiating your compensation right up front. You do this through the transaction. You do this with your buyer. And we still have to negotiate through the transaction because everything, every term on that purchase agreement is negotiable.
right.
Anyway, I
And
cut you off. You were about to ask
no,
another question.
I was just going to say, I think it's also a bit of a sliding scale because we're talking about this in very general terms, and we have sale prices on lots and land down to $50,000 all the way up to
Yeah,
$2 or $3 million. I don't think that there's any set um, percentage or bundle of bananas per
I was trying to
per
avoid that conversation too.
yeah, per whatever each transaction is, everything is negotiable. You're going to provide a certain amount of value, and maybe it's a menu of services based on what you as the client, wants that kind of experience to
Yeah,
be. And so, um, I think it all depends. I mean, if you're showing somebody 100 different properties over 12 months or however long, if the buyer comes to you and they're pre-approved and they're ready to make an offer and they've seen only a handful of properties, I think that's all, information that should be kind of input into that conversation of, are they super
yeah.
easy to work with?
I think
Do
it
they
all
have a lot
goes
of
into the mix.
questions? All
One of the
different
questions that I
questions.
got just this morning was an agent is showing or has been showing a buyer client um residential homes, and that's most of what we do as agents. But also, they're showing them lots and land,
Hmm.
and typically, compensation is different. It might be a little higher on vacant land than it is residential. Not too sure why that is, but that's just kind of the way it works out. Um, and so, well, how do you put that on a buyer broker agreement? And actually, the answer is quite simple. You have two buyer broker agreements because on the buyer broker agreement, you're describing the type of property. One of them is residential, another one happens to be land. You have commercial and you have other. And so you have one for land and you have one for residential. Totally legal, no problem whatsoever.
I have a buyer right now who's been under contract on a single family home, and all of a sudden, that one didn't work out for a bunch of different reasons. And now they're looking at mobile homes, which is personal property registered through the DMV.
Can be, yeah, that's right.
And
Yeah, there
so,
you go. There's another.
apples and oranges, like
Yep.
how do you negotiate that? Like you don't know what the final deal's going to look like at the end, but it opens the door for more conversation on helping them understand what they're doing.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's just the conversations that we have with our clients. Those are going to look and feel differently. I think the transactions, after they're all settled and escrow is closed, I think ultimately that's going to look very, very similar to the way it has in the past. But the conversations that we have are going to take on, a different. It's just going to be a different conversation.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's going to
No.
be good for the industry. Buyer side compensation has always been, I don't know, under the radar.
Yeah.
It wasn't ever talked about with buyers, not ever, but rarely.
It was a
And
different conversation. It's like, oh, the seller's paying for it, but it's coming out of your purchase price. It's just a different approach. I
yeah,
like this approach a lot better because it actually takes it one step further for the agents to have that kind of conversation so they know where all the
yeah,
dollars are going.
yeah. I think it's painful today because it's a new conversation and it's awkward. Many of us, don't know what to say or how to get into that conversation. And so, once we start doing that, now at HomeSmart, we happen to have a tool that helps buyers agents do just that and go from, point A, starting that conversation, the conversation, as I say, uh, and get to the point of, where we're talking specifically about the buyer broker agreement and getting that signed so we can go show properties. So that's a major help. But you know, again, we have to have the conversation with our sellers too, and so we haven't had to have that conversation. The conversation that we have had with our sellers has been very much different than it is today, and
Yeah.
and so it's all good. You know what? In 6 months, we're all going to be experts at this,
Yeah.
and it's not going to be that awkward at all. It's
Awesome.
just doing something new is always awkward.
Did you want to get into that graph or anything
Oh,
that you're talking
well, we
about?
were talking about the market, and and how it's well, maybe it's just a little slow right now, and so let me share this. And I thought that this was just really cool. Now, this is looking at um, home sales in June of 2024 as compared to other Junes going back 10 years. Now, first of all, I want to give a big shout out to Robert Foreman, a HomeSmart agent, who actually posted this on Facebook a couple of days ago. So I hijacked it from him. Robert, thank you very much. And you can see that June of 2015, I don't know if you can see my cursor or not. It would probably
Yeah.
would be here. There you
Yeah.
can see it. So
7723.
and so you can see what the home sales were in various Junes going across the years here. And June of 2024 is the lowest we have had in 10 years. And I can tell you, I mean, we've all felt it. As agents, we felt that June was not a stellar month. And July, haven't seen the numbers yet, but July will not be a stellar month either. People are waiting and watching, what are they waiting and watching for? It's just, there's a lot of unrest out there. Consumer confidence is not at a peak level at the moment. We've got an election coming up. We've got interest rates high, maybe trickling down, over time. And then, oh yeah, there's this thing happening, the line in the sand on August 17th. Of course, we're ahead of that curve here, but nevertheless, there's just a lot of waiting and watching. There's a lot of buyers standing on the sidelines today, and inventory is up. I don't have that graph, but it is up, and values are a little schizophrenic. you know, they're up in some neighborhoods, down slightly in some neighborhoods, but across the board, they're pretty flat. And you would think, or some economists have said, well, prices should be coming down, but there's still a very high demand. There's a housing shortage in America. And so I don't anticipate the prices are going to come down at all over the next few years. So anyway, any
And
questions
so
on the draft?
you're
I'm going to make it disappear if not.
no, that's good. I'm good on that.
Cool.
But to your point, there's a lot of factors that we're all waiting for, a lot of different things um, that are happening, and it's all very interesting. I think we recently got some good or bad employment data this last Friday. Interest rates are doing a lot better than they have been, and so I think we're going to start seeing that consumer confidence kind of roll in our favor. So, kind of hoping that it's starting to get some momentum. Of course, we'll see here in another 60 or 90 days, but hopefully, that's kind of the bottom of the horseshoe. We were talking about it in 08, 09. It's not timing the market perfectly, it's time in the market.
Yeah.
And if you need to buy a home or enhance your real estate portfolio, you know, the only way to do that is to be in the market and get that time under you. So
Yeah, that's it. You will never time the market perfectly. And so, your thought there, time in the market versus timing the market, is spot on. Wherever we are in the horseshoe,
yep.
it's just fine. So,
So
it's and you and I are both eternal optimists,
yeah,
even though we're realistic with where we are in the marketplace at any given point in time. But that optimism does prove to be correct over time.
yeah. Before we let you go, I'm going to hit you with this one last question. If you could put anything on a billboard professionally, what would you want everybody to see on your billboard? Would it be a photo or a quote, or what are you thinking?
Well, who's my market? Who am I? Because I do have a couple of mantras. One is, if any agent or as any agent comes to me and they start off by saying, Rich, do I need to disclose? And whatever comes after the ... the answer is yes. All
Yep.
right. If you have to ask that, the answer is yes. You have to disclose it. But other than that, one of the quotes that I've heard recently that I've just really leaned into and embrace is the decisions that you make today will impact. Excuse me. Let me start this over again. The decisions that you make today will determine your tomorrow.
There you go. The decisions you make today will determine your tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. That's
I don't know.
awesome.
Maybe I've been, sitting around uh, uh, too long meditating. It's a little deep, but whatever. That's where I'm at today.
That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you joining. If you're watching and if you have any questions or scenarios that maybe we didn't cover about, the transition with the NAR settlement or how to operate your business, leave a comment below, tag us up. We'll get that question answered. Rich, you're always a wealth of knowledge, and I appreciate you.
Hey, we
And
finally got to do this. This is awesome.
I'm proud of
Fun.
you as well. And so. Hopefully we'll be able to do another one here soon. Hopefully not on the settlement, and there'll be another fun
Oh, I
topic
would love to
that we
have
can
a
talk about.
conversation that does not include the NAR settlement. That would be
Absolutely,
spectacular.
yeah. We'll make sure we get that teed up. And thank you so much,
You
and
bet. Thanks for having me.
have a great day.